In this video, I'm going to share how I lost over 80 pounds in less than 1 year. That means that I lost weight at a rate of over 1 pound per week. I'm going to share the interventions, medical, including GLP-1 agonists that I took, as well as the other items that contributed to that weight loss, my processes, diet, exercise, other routine items. I've had several people in my life who have asked me how I lost so much weight and look so healthy. When people say lose weight, I really mean lose fat, because I've actually done a pretty good job of maintaining muscle. And so rather than having this conversation for the 5th time, because people keep asking, I thought it would be more efficient if I could put it in a sort of longer form video so that next time somebody asks, I'll just send this video link. So here you are. The main things I'm going to go over are, one, some of the benefits of having lost the weight that might not be so obvious. Not that anybody needs a reason to want to be in better shape. The medical interventions, including the medications. I'll spend time talking about each of them. My exercise routine, my diet and eating habits, and then finally the importance of the processes that I implemented in my life that made losing the weight very easy. And I really mean that. By the end, once I really had it dialed in, I could lose 2 pounds a week and it didn't feel like effort. So really quick, losing weight, the benefits. There's all the obvious stuff, like you can buy normal clothes, you can fit in the plane seat. Yeah, it's real obvious stuff. Some of the other things that your doctor might be scared to tell you because they don't want to damage the relationship is that when you have other issues, like say you got a bad knee, you got a bad hip, you have arthritis, you have migraines, whatever the thing is, a lot of those are very heavily exacerbated by being overweight. In my experience, I had a defect in the cartilage in my knee that was causing me a lot of pain, and I was talking to an orthopedic surgeon about getting it resolved surgically. When I lost the weight, it resolved itself. The defect probably still exists, but I don't notice it anymore. And these things are generally the case with a lot of diseases where being overweight or obese will make the symptoms and discomfort of almost any condition substantially worse, because not only you're dealing with a damaged body, but you also have to carry the heavier weight on that damaged body. So the other thing that you might not hear about is when you're losing weight, and maybe this is more to do with diet than the weight loss, but these things are tied together, is a lot of people, which women tend to be more sensitive to it, is you get the bumps on your arms. I had the bumps, my girlfriend had the bumps are gone. Skin is generally just clear overall. All right, let's move on. There's a lot to cover. So as far as the medical interventions, so I started losing weight with the goal of losing fat about a year ago, sort of at the end of 22. I was doing things the hard way. So I was going to the gym, I was trying to cook more, make better decisions, and doing things the hard way, I managed to lose about 20 pounds. And that's kind of starting to stagnate because it's a lot to keep doing. It takes a lot of concerted effort doing it that way. And there's certainly nothing wrong with doing it that way, but if you're willing to put some resources, it's not exactly cheap to do it this route, but if you're willing to put just a modest amount of resources towards it, you can greatly accelerate the process and make it tremendously easier. So after doing things the hard way, I got a concierge doctor, or a doctor who is part of a concierge practice. There's some divisiveness about the effectiveness of those kinds of practices. So do your research and make sure that if you decide to go that route like I did, that you're willing to have honest conversations with your provider where you guys talk about best medicine versus navigating the incentives of you pay them, they give you the thing. And be prepared for them to take that feedback earnestly, which I want. But anyway, the one of the benefits of such a practice is that they do a good job of having frequent meetings with frequent interactions, frequent labs, and I was meeting with my provider and it was maybe the second or third time that we had met. And he goes, "Hey, I noticed you've been losing weight, like doing the right things. Your bloods have been improving. Have you considered pharmaceutical intervention?" And when I started the process, I wasn't even aware of these medications, but it had been a few months. I'd done some research, and so I already kind of knew what these GLP agonists were. He said that he had been prescribing it off-label, and his patients have been having a lot of success with it. So, I mean, if you're watching this, then you're probably doing your own research as well. So this is just another anecdotal experience. But I got on Mounjaro. The literature reflected that Mounjaro had the highest rate of weight loss compared to the other GLP-1 agonists. But it doesn't really matter a ton which one I had gone on, but that's the one I went on. Let me talk about my experience with Mounjaro. So the way that these medications work is that they titrate you up. So you take a small dose that increases every so often. Your doctor would tell you how frequently you would increase your dosage. But you take a shot. The shot, when it comes from these name brand sources, it comes as an injection appliance. It's basically a plastic needle thing about this big. It has a cap on one end that you pull off. You gently push it against your stomach or wherever your injection site will be. There's a button at the top that you press. That activates a spring that puts a very small diabetic needle into basically the fat under your skin. It injects it and then it pulls it out. So even if you're scared of needles, you don't even have to see it. It doesn't hurt. And when I say it doesn't hurt, getting stabbed, you feel it, but there's no meaningful pain. It's very, very mild. It's very quick. There's no blood. Worst case, it's like having a scratch. I mean, it's like nothing. It's very easy. Let me talk about the way I felt on it. So for the first couple of weeks, as I was kind of figuring things out and going from 0 to anything, right? That's sort of the biggest jump, right? I had some mild GI issues, which I really only experienced for the couple of days after the injection day. And that kind of tapered off as I became more acclimated to the medication. And I also intervened with pre and probiotics. So that kind of eliminated the issue regardless. But when I would take it, and the effects, they kind of ramp up. It takes about 24 hours to really feel them in full effect. They're at their highest for the first 2-3 days. And then by the next shot day before you've taken it, the effects are maybe at 50% of where they were at peak, but still you know that they're there. So yeah, the GI stuff was only a temporary negative side effect. In terms of the positive effects, when I was on this medication, I guess I still am, though I've been tapering down, I completely eliminated food noise. So if you were anything like I was, then when you wake up, you think about food. While you're eating, you're thinking about your next meal. While you're having lunch, you're thinking about, do I get a reservation for dinner? What am I gonna Uber Eats? Like, you just think about food all day. And with this medication, you effectively remove the part of your brain that even thinks about food in any regard at all for the majority of the day. Like, you don't get hungry until many hours have passed since your last meal. When you do get hungry, you don't feel the outrageous craving that you might be used to feeling when you're hungry. And for me in particular, I could, even when I had days where I had the discipline to do like one meal a day, intermittent fasting style, by the time I got to the end of the day and it was my time to eat, my brain fog was debilitating. I just couldn't last enough hours between meals that I was functional. Like, all I could think about was, no, I gotta stop whatever I'm doing. I can't think, I can't move, I gotta eat. And with this medication, that is no longer the case. So if you had an experience, if you were to have an experience anything like mine, then you just eliminate the food thoughts. They're just gone. There's no boredom eating. There's no, I want to eat this because it tastes good. You just don't think about food, period. Unless it's like literally in front of you and you can't avoid seeing it, you don't think about it. The next thing I did, and these were all staggered out. So I started losing weight the hard way. Then I got the concierge practice. Then a few months after that, he started me on the Mounjaro. So let's move to the next one, testosterone. I had my blood levels checked. This is something that really only applies to people who need testosterone, who are not in benchmark range, but this is more of a transparency thing. So I have been taking testosterone every week, and I went from being below the low end of benchmark to being on the high end within benchmark, meaning that I have healthy testosterone levels now. And the effect of that is that when you have healthy levels of testosterone compared to not, your energy levels will improve. And since the goal of this weight loss is really fat loss, when you take testosterone, you will maintain muscle more easily. You will build muscle more easily. And so as I lost weight, I really lost mostly fat. And that was greatly helped by the testosterone. And so if it's an option where it's medically necessary, then I think that it was certainly very helpful for me to maintain a healthy body composition as I lost this fat. Vyvanse, that's one that came more recently. No ethical doctor would prescribe Vyvanse for weight loss. I had it as the on-label usage. It helps me. It's something that I need and makes my life substantially better. But just for transparency, taking amphetamine will help with appetite reduction. I'm not saying this because I think someone should take it for appetite reduction, but just to share that was another thing that kind of stacked the deck for me that was not intentional. The other thing I did was I started taking a more broad supplement stack. This was informed partially by my lab results and partially because I'm just kind of doing the healthy thing. You kind of get into the biohacking stuff. You start reading Brian Johnson and Huberman and Attia, and I've at least done enough experimenting with some of these things that realistically I probably don't require any of them, but I've noticed that when I go a few days without taking my little handful of pills, that I start not feeling quite as good. And even if I'll go like a week and try to get back to homeostasis, because a lot of these things have fairly short half-lives, stuff like B vitamins, folic acid, they really only stay in your body for about a day. And so after 2 or 3 days, you notice the difference for stuff like that. I'm sure some of these supplements I'm taking aren't really doing anything, but for me on the whole, I'd rather just keep taking all of them than to worry about which ones I could cut out to save 12 cents a day on a pill. Finally, pre and probiotics. I recently switched, but I don't think it matters a ton what you do. I'm currently taking an inulin powder. You can get it on Amazon, it's very cheap. And then I'm trying something called VSL3. It's designed to be taken under medical supervision. It's basically a bunch of freeze-dried, really good bacteria that rehydrate and come to life in your belly. And I feel like I feel better having been taking it for a week, but who knows? But doctor recommended it, so we're seeing how it works. So those are the medications. I will say, just to be very clear, that of all of the things that I list, whether it's within the list of medications or whether it's the diet, exercise, the processes, the single largest contributing factor to my weight loss being easy is definitely the Mounjaro, the GLP-1 agonist. Mounjaro is owned by Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly recently released a different brand name of the exact same drug called Zepbound. And with that release on their website, and I haven't gone through this, but because Mounjaro, the on-label use was for diabetes management, Zepbound, the exact same drug, was given approval by the FDA for use for weight loss specifically. So they have a new program where you can go to their website, and I don't know how this works. I haven't done it, but it seems like a nice thing because not everybody has access to medical providers who are willing to prescribe these things. So their website apparently will help you get the prescription and get access to the medication, and there's a discount as well. I pay $550 for 4 shots. That's $550 for what, while you're actively using it, is 4 weeks. So it's expensive, but that's with the coupon. Without the coupon, it's like more than double that. So just fair warning. Okay, so yeah, the Mounjaro, that was the thing. All the other stuff, it helped, but that was the thing. Exercise routine. I don't think it really matters what you do, but let me tell you what I did. Every single day, I would go to the gym at least 6 days a week. Sometimes I would go a couple of stretches of every single day, but like 6 days, at minimum 5 days, I would go to the gym, and I would do different things, but the thing that I really latched onto is that I would go to a treadmill, and it took me a couple of weeks to ramp up to this point. But once I got here, I didn't feel a need to like really push myself any harder. I would walk. I would set it to a pace of 3 to 3.5 miles an hour. I would put it on a pretty small incline, and I would walk for 1 hour. And when you weigh 200, 220 pounds, and you do a slight incline, 3 miles an hour for an hour, you're burning over 400 calories. And that's a good amount. I would occasionally do some weightlifting. I still will occasionally do some weightlifting. But that was it. It was just go to the gym, just do something for an hour. And I liked doing the walking thing, especially because I really like YouTube. And so what I would do is I would put a video on. I liked podcasts that film that kind of stuff. And I would just do a thing for an hour. And it was very easy. It was like entertaining, right? Like that's my, if you're gonna spend the evening just scrolling on your phone or watching Netflix or YouTube, like just do it at the gym. It's just as, the show is still just as good, but at least you're moving and burning an extra 300, 400, 500 calories. And then more recently, after I had lost enough weight that I could be more active, then I shifted to doing more physical activities. So playing tennis, playing basketball, going to yoga. I'm about to go play ping pong, which you don't think that it's exercise until you're sore the next day, which maybe that's just a reflection of me getting older. But I don't think it really matters as long as you do something, probably the same thing at the same place at the same time every single day. Diet and eating. So when I first started losing weight the hard way, I just kind of went, well, like what do the bodybuilders do? They eat chicken and rice and broccoli. And so I went, okay, so I'll have some kind of meat, some kind of leafy green, and rice. And I was doing that for a good couple months. And then one day I kind of had this epiphany of, why am I eating rice? Like I don't, like obviously carbs are good, but like they're not that good. I don't feel like what is it contributing? Because I don't, like the carbs are energy, right? They're sugar that is I realized that I didn't need it, right? Like I had plenty of energy. I wasn't doing super active stuff. I was obviously doing some exercise, but like you don't need rice. You don't need pasta. You don't need carbs. These things, they don't really contribute. They're filler, and they're high calorie filler. So I cut that stuff out right around the time I got on the Mounjaro. Being on the Mounjaro, you really are not hungry. And on some days you almost have to force yourself to eat. But since you want to lose fat and not muscle, then what you need to do is you need to focus on a nutrient complete diet that is high in protein. So I ate, basically I would have a protein heavy lunch if I had lunch. And then for dinner, I would have a protein plus vegetable dinner. I cooked almost every single meal. And even when I ate out, I mean, I get Chipotle, but I kind of like tapered my recipe a little bit. And frankly, when the medication's in full effect, you can't eat a whole Chipotle, so you're basically just picking out the meat and like having a little bit of the rest of the stuff. So that was one fast food that I would keep doing a couple times a month. But other than that, it was almost exclusively cooking at home. Um, okay, this is going to tie back to all the other stuff, but I want to talk about the importance of processes. And if the medication was one driving factor into making this easy, the other large driving factor was that I implemented processes, almost like optimizing my life with standard operating procedures and schedules, so that it optimized for making the process of making good decisions very easy. And by that I mean, like, I never felt deprived. I never felt like I had to fight temptation. And so here's some of the things I did. Not all of them can be recreated, but this is my list. So one is that as I started this whole process, I moved. And the significance of that, which this is the one that you can't really recreate, but you anchor your habits largely to your environment. So when I say environment, I mean, like, if you always drive past the Wendy's and you go to the Wendy's at least once a week, then if you still live where you have to drive past the Wendy's, then you have to fight the queue that leads to the bad habit of going to the Wendy's every single time you drive by it. If your friends want to go get a big giant dinner every Friday night and you want to switch your eating habits, it's very hard when the environment of hanging out with your friends involves going to do that thing. So by moving, I was able to start fresh. This is something that I get you can't recreate, but like, it really, really helped with I had no habits, I had no cues. There was the gas station that I always drove by and got a breakfast burrito. I don't drive by that gas station anymore. I don't live near it. So things like that were really helpful. Maybe just sharing for transparency and less about telling anyone that you should move to lose weight. Okay, routine. Routine was probably the most important process hack. So what I would do, and you can reflect on your version of this, is that I would wake up in the morning, do whatever my morning routine was, if it was short, if it was long, whatever. But the first meaningful, productive thing that I did with my day, regardless of if I got up early on a weekday, if I slept in on a weekend, is that I went to the gym. So that's number one, is just do whatever I got to do at home, go to the gym. That's the first productive thing that I did. I would spend at least an hour there. And so I knew that, how long it took to drive there. I knew about how long I'd be at the gym. And that way I didn't have to think like, what am I going to do today? It's the morning. The first thing that I do is I go to the gym. So it took the thought about it. There was no decision. I didn't have to think every day, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to the gym? It's just, I get up, I do my morning, I go to the gym. And then the first thing that I would do leaving the gym is I would drive straight to the grocery store. And I would go to, it took me a while to figure out this routine, but this is what really worked for me. I go straight to the grocery store and I would buy my food for, if I was hungry, which is at least half the time, I would get something for lunch. The lunch would be basically protein. I would go to the sushi section and get some salmon. And just salmon, like no rice. Or I would go to like the little deli cooler and I would get a little thing of like just plain chicken salad. I went to Whole Foods. They had some options that were, it's chicken salad, so there's fat in it, but they had some that were a little bit better, right? It was a little bit less of the mayonnaise garbage. But I would just pick something like that, something just very protein. And then I would go to the butcher area, which Whole Foods is the best butcher near me. And I would pick out a protein. You know how like when it's like evening and you don't have food and you're trying to decide what to eat, and then you make that decision, you go, oh, I want pizza, I want chicken, I want whatever the thing is. And because like you're in the mood for it in that moment, it's a lot easier to follow through with that commitment, because the version of you 30 minutes ago said, I want chicken, and now you're eating chicken. So it's a lot easier to want to follow through, because if you stock up your fridge, and this is what I'm getting at, is part of this process for my shopping is that I never had more than 48 hours worth of food in my house. I didn't keep snacks. I didn't keep junk. I didn't go buy food for the next 5 days. I would buy food for today. And that way, in 3 days from now, I wouldn't look at the thing in the fridge and go, yeah, I bought that 3 days ago, but like, I'm just not in the mood for it. Because look, regardless of saying that that's a lack of discipline or whatever, like, the reality is, why not just put a process in place where discipline is not required? And that's what I did. So there was virtually no discipline required on my part, because I get up, I go to the gym, I go to the grocery store, I buy the food for that day. I would often just eat my lunch there. And then I go home, I put the food for dinner in the fridge, and that was it. And then at dinner time, I cooked the food, I ate all the food that I wanted, and then when I was done, there was no food left. So there was no thing in the pantry that I had to like reach my hand over to get. There was no shit in the fridge that I had to worry about. Like, there was no option for me to even have to worry about the temptation. So that made it tremendously easy. And I also set some pretty hard boundaries in our house about, like, if some bad food made its way into our house, which that's life, it happens. I would kind of set like a time limit where I'd say, okay, like, that's very nice of the friend to give us the cookies or the whatever, like it's gonna stay here for 24 hours, and then you gotta get rid of it. We gotta throw it away, you gotta take it to work and give it away, like it can't stick around. And that way you at least got to occasionally have a treat. You got to do the socially appropriate thing too, and accept a nice gift. You got to try, you got the benefits, but you don't have to eat the whole sleeve of cookies, because the cookies are only there for a couple hours. And if it was something particularly tempting for me or particularly bad, then I would just like, nope, we can't keep it. Like, I like those too much. I will eat the whole thing, and I will regret it. And I can't have temptation. So it was, these kinds of boundaries are, luckily my partner was on board, so it wasn't like a big deal, but this part, it felt a little bit unnatural, because I'm somebody who doesn't like to be wasteful. And so to get like foods that, one, I liked, or were kindnesses or whatever, like it felt antisocial, but it was a necessary thing, and I don't think anyone's feelings have been hurt by it. Okay, so that's the importance of routine and the processes of eliminating temptation. Another example of eliminating temptation is I shopped, it took me a while to figure this out, but I shop exclusively at Whole Foods for my groceries. I tried a bunch of different grocery stores that, they're all fine places. But the thing I found is that Whole Foods, one, somehow, and this was just a pattern that I noticed, is that foods of the same category and the same portion size, or at least the same portion unit, are somehow have better macros at Whole Foods on average. And so even if you're getting the pre-made salad at Walmart or the pre-made salad at Whole Foods, the one at Whole Foods is gonna have fewer calories in it. And I can't explain why, but it just seems like on average, that's the trend that I experienced. Two, the ethos of a place like Whole Foods is to support a healthy lifestyle. And so when you go to the fancy grocery store, whatever the version of it is for you, there's no, like when you walk past the end cap at Whole Foods, they don't have cookies on the end cap. They don't have pints of ice cream on the end cap. They technically sell those things, but they're just kind of tucked away in the aisles that those things are for. And on top of that, which, like, one, like, they make it easier in that way, but two, even if you go down those aisles, like, the macros, like, sort of apples to apples, potato chip at Whole Foods is probably gonna have better macros than potato chip at Walmart, but it's also gonna come in a smaller package. There is no family-sized bags at Whole Foods. The stuff also, the junk food, frankly, it doesn't taste as good. It doesn't taste as good as Doritos. And so it's a lot easier to be like, well, like, why would I even buy it? Like, it's not even as good, and it costs twice as much. Like, I'm just gonna stick with the filet of cod and the asparagus that I bought, and occasionally, I could buy like chocolate and stuff. I mean, I probably ate chocolate a few times a week, and or like, sort of like sweets like that, um, just to sort of, I don't know, like, you gotta live a little bit, and it's a lot easier to place like Whole Foods to buy stuff that's an appropriate serving for one person who's trying to have a healthy lifestyle with an occasional little thing, and stuff like that made me feel like, man, like I get to eat when you've combined the really clean eating with having a lot of meat, fish, chicken, vegetables, and then the occasional like little candy, you really feel like you're getting the full balance of like the fun bad stuff and like the clean good stuff that makes you feel good. Um, so like just being at a grocery store where you're not walking by the Nabisco aisle and the Kellogg's aisle with all the bright colors and the end caps, that even if you have the discipline to not walk down those aisles, or when you're at the register, and this is going back to cues and habits, when you're at the register at Target and they have 86 different kinds of candy bar, and that's the cue, and the habit that you had before is that half the time you would buy the pack of M&Ms. Well, Whole Foods doesn't have M&Ms, and they definitely don't have candy and junk food at the register. So just putting yourself in an environment where you don't have to fight temptation. If the temptation isn't there, then it's just literally off your radar. And so just another thing to make it just so much easier. Okay, finally, like some little things. I got a standing desk. I'm standing at it right now. This is sort of my office room in my house. I've got a little treadmill underneath it, and so I've sort of used that as a hack because I've basically kind of let off the gas a little bit. So at my peak, I was losing about 2 pounds a week. That's about 1,000 calorie deficit every day. I was just at a 10. It was just nothing but like there was no sweets at that time. It was every day is I eat a piece of fish for lunch. I eat a piece of fish or chicken for dinner with a clean green vegetable, and that is it. And I did that for God, weeks, months, with like the very rare Chipotle. And that was what I needed to do at the time. Now I'm at a healthy weight. I'm at a healthy BMI. I'm still losing fat, but I've just, I'm more moderate with it. But yeah, so now I can kind of do my walks at home, and then when I go to the gym, I can focus on doing active stuff. I've been doing yoga still, occasionally basketball. I'm gonna go play some ping pong, which I think is exercise, but it doesn't really matter what you do. So I guess in summary, if you can get access to any of those medical interventions, that's going to be the biggest thing. Two, the exercise stuff. It doesn't really matter what you do. It doesn't have to be hard. You should probably go to a gym and not just do it at home, but something as easy as walking, just do something for an hour. It doesn't have to be hard or complicated. Diet and eating, change where you go to your grocery store, go to the fancy place. It'll make it a lot easier, because if you're used to going to the crappy place, then you have to walk by all the crappy foods that you're used to buying. And even if you don't have a fancy grocery store, but you have a different grocery store, just going to a different one so that all of those cues that you're used to of I go down that aisle to get that bad thing, your brain isn't wired for that anymore, at least at that new store. But if you're able to go to the good grocery store and just a note on Whole Foods and those places specifically is, I was eating about 3,000 calories a day, and a lot of it was coming from Walmart and inexpensive places. A lot of it was coming from like drive-thrus. You go to Wendy's or Cane's or whatever. I'm pretty sure that I spend a lot less money on food now, where almost all of it comes from Whole Foods, compared to when I was eating out that much. So it doesn't really cost more, because and combining that with the fact that I only buy the food for the next 24 hours tops, 48 hours tops, you waste a lot less. Like 100% of what comes into your house, you're gonna eat. And then once you're out, you're out. And then finally, the disclaimer, I'm not your doctor. You need to talk to your own medical provider before doing any of this stuff. My approach here was that I wanted to maximize my fat loss. I wanted it to be as quick and as painless as possible. I did not factor in the cost. These medications are expensive. Concierge medicine is cost prohibitive for many. Some of these other medications, it's not cheap. That's not what I optimized for. And frankly, reflecting back on all of it, it costs tremendously less than the sticker price, because when you make good decisions, when you're efficient with your food buying habits and consumption habits, when you're not eating out, you save a tremendous amount of money, especially if you are in the situation where you are substantially overweight, like I was. Over 3,000 calories a day is not cheap, and you can offset a tremendous amount of these costs just by being more efficient. Man, I've been trying to make this video shorter. I already did it once and it was 10 minutes longer than this. So I'm gonna end it there. If you have any questions, you can, I don't know where I'm gonna upload this. You can put a comment, you can text me if you know me. I'm happy to talk, but I've had this conversation several times with other people already, and I thought it would be more efficient to do it here. So thanks.